Michigan Liberation is a statewide network of people and organizations organizing to end the criminalization of Black families and communities of color in Michigan. We envision a state without mass incarceration, mass policing, and punishment. We envision a state with the best public education in the nation, single-payer health care, and thriving Black and Brown communities. Here on the Respect the Roots podcast, we will lift up the stories and experiences of those impacted by mass incarceration, collective ties to the criminal legal system, and the frontline efforts to end mass incarceration.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Michigan Liberation's Respect the Roots podcast. Make sure you check us out on Xfinity, my goodness, Comcast, Wow Cable, and various podcast platforms such as iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Pandora. And also make sure to check us out on social media at My Liberation. Well, today I'm so excited about my guest, Kate Boulton. Hey, Kate. Kate, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Kate, what can I say? Well, first of all, Kate is in New Mexico, right? But she's
That's right.
from Michigan. She's a Michiganer by
Yes.
heart and everything. I had to throw that in because we love our Michigan people because we're based out of Michigan.
Exactly.
Everybody that's listening or watching. And Kate, I just got to read, your bio and everything. So it's so impressive. Kate Boulton, you're part of Vital Strategy, all right? You're currently the senior legal technical advisor. I got to get that out right. So she's a legal and public health professional that's part of Vital Strategy. So we're going to be talking about all of that. Also, you've been supporting overdose prevention efforts in Michigan since 2019, dealing with drug policy, overdose harm reduction, including strategies to reduce overdose among people impacted by the justice system. So, at Michigan Liberation, that's all we do every day, all day, Kate. And prior to Vital Strategies, you worked as a staff attorney at the Center for HIV Law and Policy, and you served with the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. All right. Okay, Kate. Kate has a JD law degree from Harvard Law. We like to throw that out. I mean, she's smart, okay, super intelligent, and her master's of public health from the University of U of M. Oh, we love that. Yeah. They like the one. Wait, after that football game, right? But anyway, we love her because she's from Michigan. But welcome, Kate. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to join you on this podcast.
Oh, I'm so glad. It's been a long time coming. So for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm talking to Kate Boulton from Vital Strategies. Super intelligent, beautiful with all that, girl power, yeah. Okay, but we had Dr. Bowers on another episode. So this was just, it was meant to be having you on here. And I talked to Tony, the communications person over at Vital Strategies. Shout out to him. Shout out to Tony. And when we put this together, I was super excited, Kate. So I want to go right hard in the paint right now, if you don't mind. Yes. We're going to be talking today about the overdose crisis. You know what I mean? And I want people to leave with some food for thought, from this episode. And if we have to do another one, we already are prepared, y'all, because we got so much information to share with you today. At least Kate does. But Kate, I first want to paint this picture of what's going on with this overdose crisis nationally and in Michigan, and also in the BIPOC community. And for those of you who don't know, BIPOC is what? Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to let you take the mic, and I'm going to listen, sip some water, coffee, and we're going to have this convo.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thanks again for having me. Really honored to join you. We've had some great guests leading up to now, so I am honored and humbled to join you all. But for us to understand sort of the moment that we're in, I think we need to understand that we're really in the midst of a public health emergency, right? So in 2021, over 100,000 people died from overdose. And this was the first time that had happened. And so at this point, drug overdose is like a leading cause of death among Americans 18 to 45. So, we're facing this crisis, And I think COVID has made it a bit harder. And that's partly because, of course, people have been more isolated, but also because the services and supports that people need have been disrupted and harder to access. And so the Vital Strategies Overdose Prevention Program uh, is grappling with this in Michigan and elsewhere. And in Michigan, we see similar sort of trends, right? So overdose has been increasing for some time in the state. In 2021, it was over 3,000 people in
Wow.
Michigan that died of overdose. So that's an average of over 2 people an hour. And so, we really are in the midst of an urgent public health crisis. And we know also that this crisis is disproportionately impacting people of color. So, from 2019, and I know I'm throwing a lot of statistics at you, but 2019 to 2020, overdose rates increased by 44% among Black folks and 39% among Indigenous folks in the US. And in Michigan, it's the same. Overdose rates are higher among Black Michiganders. And so it's really critical as we think about how to approach this crisis and how to save people's lives that we are mindful of those disparities and really seek to address them.
Wow. So thank you, Kate, for that. So, when we were talking offline, we know there's a problem, but I guess we didn't know it was to that degree. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that you kind of gave us the statistics so we could get an idea, you know what I mean, of
Mhm.
what's going on here. So it now kind of leads us into talking about who is Vital Strategies? Like, what is your role in the grand scheme of this
Mhm.
overdose crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Vital Strategies is actually a global public health organization. So, the organization works in over 70 countries to strengthen health systems and implement evidence based strategies around lots of health issues from road safety to air pollution and health. But the overdose prevention program, which is the program I work in and that we're talking about today, works in the United States and was actually the first domestic program at Vital Strategies to have this US focus. And so, uh, Overdose Prevention Program, OPP, I'll call it for short,
Mhm.
is the lead implementer for the state's work in a Bloomberg Philanthropies funded initiative to reduce overdose in the US. And so we work in Michigan, and like you said, Marjan, have been working in the state since early 2019, but we also work in Kentucky, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, New Jersey, New Mexico, and Wisconsin. And so, have work ongoing in sort of geographically diverse areas of the country. And so, um, I do want to give a shout out to the two colleagues of mine who lead our Michigan efforts, Julie Ron and Esther May Rosner. So they've both been brilliant, and I'm grateful that they're leading our overdose prevention efforts in my home state.
Oh, we love shout outs,
Yes,
especially when we're
yes.
trying to do this kind of work, Kate. Now, um, let's break it down even more because I know you talked about you're working on the overdose prevention program aspect of Vital Strategies. Like, what type of strategies do you support? And like, let's talk about harm reduction. When Dr. Bowers was on, we just kind of scratched the surface slightly because we hear about that term now so much, harm reduction. And I even had her define it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Her own definition. But can you go into a little bit of tell everybody kind of like some of the strategies and support that have been taking place within VS, Vital Strategy with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's helpful to kind of talk through harm reduction because you
Yes.
do hear it more and more, and you also hear it appropriated by stakeholders in the criminal legal system and other spaces. And so it's important that we say what we mean when we talk about harm reduction. So yeah, that is a key dimension to our work. It's really the North Star of the Vital Strategies Overdose Prevention Program, and we want it to guide everything that we do. And so the way I think about harm reduction, the way we talk about harm reduction is as meeting people where they are,
Yeah.
in a way that is compassionate and non-coercive, non-punitive, in order to reduce some of the negative consequences that can result from drug use. Other important aspects of harm reduction are that it is person-centered and honors individual agency and self-determination of people who use drugs. And part of that is also people who use drugs having an active role in guiding the kinds of strategies that we use, programs, policies, strategies, sort of across the board. So, you hear about this in other kinds of movement spaces, and this is no different, but nothing about us without us, right? Some examples of harm reduction strategies familiar to most folks, maybe not most, but many, are syringe access programs or needle exchanges, they're often called, and then distribution of naloxone. And naloxone is an overdose antidote. It can reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. And so, we want it to be widely available so that people can use it whenever there's a need. Another key, oh, sorry, Rajan.
No, I was like, I'm amazed because let me just say real quick, Kate, because like I said, we in Michigan Liberation we've been talking about this, and even to the Narcan spray.
Mhm,
I'm gonna be honest. Can I be honest and transparent with
mhm,
everybody and you? I had no idea like it was a
mhm,
nasal spray. I thought I was just so out in La La Land,
mhm,
and even took a class on how to use it
mhm,
and had no clue the effects that and I love how you said we meet people where they're at. So because a lot of times when people are dealing with addiction or something, whatever it is, Kate,
mhm,
we're so quick to criticize and to tell
mhm.
people just stop doing it and not really, like you said, have a prevention plan. It's more the prevention plan is, hey, get off of it,
Yeah.
stop it.
Mhm,
We call people all kind of names and think that's going to help, but I
mhm,
love how you said that harm reduction, dealing with meeting people where they're at and putting things in place, parameters in place to really attack that or
mhm.
address it, should I say. So kudos
Yeah.
to you guys for doing that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that stigma doesn't work. It just makes things worse. And we know that insistence on abstinence, or as you said, just stop, is also not a solution, right? And so yeah, harm reduction is about taking a person-centered, holistic approach and um, pursuing all of the different types of strategies that flow from that. Um, and I just wanted to mention too, we've talked about the disproportionate impact of the overdose crisis on BIPOC folks. Um, just that a racial equity approach is also essential to how we work. So, we know that this nation's drug policies have had, um, enormous harm for communities of color. And a huge part of that, which I know we're going to talk about more, is the way in which criminalization has historically functioned and continues to function as a way of fostering discrimination and oppression. And so, we have to keep that in mind because it's foundational to the work that we do and how we do it.
Wow. So, Kate, I know you talked about, you've been working in all these different states, and we definitely want to talk about Michigan since we're based out of Michigan, Michigan Liberation. Some of the projects from the past 4 years, and I can't believe it's been 4 years. Wow, that you've been working on. Now, I
Mhm.
know you, and I don't know if you can go specific, like anything specific that you've been working on in Michigan.
Yeah, of course. I have a few examples I'd love to talk about. So, one of the examples is this amazing communications campaign called Change at Your Own Pace that we did in partnership with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, or MDHHS. And so this is a campaign from last year that features, real Michiganders telling their real stories. And it also includes information about how you can access harm reduction resources. And so this is a great campaign that you can see on the MDHHS website, but also Facebook and Instagram. So I really encourage listeners or viewers to check it out. Another couple of projects I wanted to highlight are partnerships with the Ruth Ellis Center and with Answer Detroit. So Ruth Ellis Center is a Detroit area organization focusing on the needs of LGBTQ youth. And so there we're trying to support, they're building out sort of capacity for harm reduction in a way that is tailored to their community and the folks that they serve. Answer Detroit is a sex worker advocacy collective, and there we'll be supporting some needs assessment activities as well as some outreach and education. We're also funding Harm Reduction Michigan to install naloxone boxes across different locations throughout the state. And I also want to mention we're exploring opportunities to fund and support non-police crisis response. And I wanted to raise that because it touches on the care not criminalization work and part of that agenda. And so, that's just a small smattering of examples of what is, years of work and many, many projects and partnerships.
Wow, Kate. You're just joining us. I am talking to Kate Boulton. She is the Senior Legal Technical Advisor at Vital Strategies Overdose Prevention Program. Now, Kate, I got to tell you a quick little story. Just yesterday, I was at a training, and I said, wait till I tell Kate about this on the podcast. There was a young lady that came into the training and came up to one of my colleagues and was like, hey, I need like 2 boxes of Narcan, and I was like, wow, because that's been something we kind of just took for granted. We started that was something, and luckily, I mean, we had that readily available because she said, I know people, like you said, going back to meeting people where they're at. We kind of stop ignoring the fact that people are going to be where they are, doing what they do. And it was just amazing that we were able to, assist her, even though this was a total different training on bailouts. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Another aspect of our, organization. But she was like, I see people all the time. They're walking from these group homes and they're in need. They're suffering from drugs and this and that, and some of them have overdose. And she said, I'm a returning citizen. I'm gonna be honest. I know these people. They feel comfortable around me, and I need 2 boxes of Narcan. And we're like, boom, here you go. And I think that's kind of like it summarizes what you just kind of said, Kate. We got to meet people where we're at and get these, prevention programs in place. Even it's like people taking Narcan boxes out to the communities,
I
getting vending
love
machines.
that.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Mhm.
We're starting to see that. Like one guy was like, "Hey, there's one on such and such 6 Mile and such and such.
Mhm.
If you need more." She's like, "Oh, I didn't know that. Knowledge is power." So that kind of leads us, Kate, into talking about care not criminalization, which is a campaign that we started through Michigan Liberation, and how, I was kind of there when you meeting you and the team, Vital Strategies, and just want to know, like, why did Vital Strategies support care not criminalization? Just kind of tell us a little bit about that partnership.
Absolutely. I mean, just in the most general terms, there's real alignment, I think, in our philosophies and the approaches we want to be taking in terms of, um, really driving for policies and strategies that are community informed and community driven. And, as you said, a huge focus of your organization is the harms of criminalization, especially for Black and Brown families. And so, there was that real kind of synergy from the very outset. And, I think on that point, we wanted to partner with Michigan Liberation on Care Not Crim because the reality is that our response to drug use and people who use drugs is still largely anchored in a war on drugs frame that we've been stuck in for the last 5 decades. There's been, sure, some recent progress, but we still are seeing drug use and overdose addressed through a punishment and incarceration lens rather than a health and support lens. And so we know that interaction with the criminal legal system, from arrest to incarceration to the reentry process and returning to your community from incarceration, all can intensify vulnerability to overdose, make people more in danger. And so that's in addition to all of the social and economic impacts that we know flow from criminalization, the stigma of a criminal record, all of the consequences for employment, public benefits, much more. So we wanted to support the campaign because of the need to address this head on and address it head on in a way that is informed by community. And of course, the Care Not Crim campaign was based on listening sessions, stakeholder engagement, and one-on-ones that Michigan Lib led throughout the summer of 2021 in Wayne, Oakland, and Kalamazoo counties. And so, we can talk more about the agenda maybe if we have time, but it was an incredibly exciting project and one that I love to talk about, both because,
Go ahead, go. The floor is yours. We got enough time. We got more than enough time to talk about that because I think it's important. And then, because Kate, I also want to talk about how the community engagement. How do we get? Because guess what? We have people who come up to us. I know you do. I know I do. Who ask, how do I get involved? Like maybe they don't know anybody directly involved in, this, crisis, but they want to get involved to some degree, whether it's doing volunteering, passing out stuff, So we got we can touch a little bit on it. We don't have a whole lot of time, but we got about 5 minutes to kind of touch on it. Then we can do it in another part two. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds great. Yeah, I think you want to, create as many pathways as possible for people to get involved in ways that make sense for them. And, I think Michigan Liberation is, of course, expert on how to do that because of all of the successful campaigns that you've mounted around different issues. I think, we see it as essential as well, which is why Vital Strategies has supported, drug user unions and other strategies to really build collective power of people impacted by the war on drugs and other, harmful responses to drug use and overdose. And, trying to give people the tools and the space to voice their own needs and priorities and, have that guide policymakers, organizations like ours that are funders and implementers. And so the importance of that community engagement and mobilization can't be overstated. It's critical.
Wow. So much work to be done. So much, it has been done, which is good, And we know already, Kate, we're gonna go do part two. So everyone, please make sure you tune in to part two, where we go into an in-depth conversation about continuing to engage, and mobilizing these communities. Okay, we gotta make it plain. People are missing it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And this is becoming a problem. That's why it's a crisis.
Yeah.
But a lot of people I find in this line of work, especially when it deals with the criminal justice system, are lack of knowledge, don't have that care, that
Mhm.
support, and so forth. And so hey, if you just joined us, you missed out on some good, conversation. Or Kate was schooling us. Part two, we'll maybe do some more conversation piece. But Kate, you got to stay on. We got to do part two. That's just how we do here in Michigan Liberation. That's what we love about this podcast platform, that we allow our guests to come in, say what they got to say, and then come back for some more and give us some
Mhm.
more. Because we have to talk about this topic, and so forth. And I tell people sometimes when we're interviewed by the media, we may interview for 30 minutes, but only get 5 minutes of what was said.
Right.
You know what I mean, Kate?
Mhm.
So I'm excited about part two. This is part one, everybody. And hey, here's the thing. Kate, before we go into part two, is there anything that you want to just say that relates to, again, like, food for thought that you went over? Anything with the statistics? We can go back over that in part two, but anything, like, I don't know. You said a lot of good information. I like the fact you said meet people where they're at, but just what's something you want somebody to take away from this episode?
Uh, I think the importance of um, people power in terms of turning it around and how we respond to the crisis that we're in, crisis of overdose. We saw Oregon voters vote to decriminalize drug possession in 2020. Lots of other exciting developments in drug policy, even as we continue to grapple with criminalization. And so, that is what I would want people to take away from this conversation. Just the real room for progress with, our advocacy and our voices.
Awesome, Kate. I knew you could come through. I knew you could come through. So thank you everybody for tuning in to this part one. Talking with Kate Boulton from Vital Strategies. Make sure you tune in part two. And until then, remember to what? Respect the roots. Until next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Michigan Liberation Education Fund, C3, conducts grassroots organizing, leadership development, and civic engagement activities. Michigan Liberation C4 and Michigan Liberation Action Fund, IE, are sister organizations.